In this brief passage of John, Jesus doesn't heal anyone or bring them back to life. He's simply serving them. Maybe that is what we should do. Perhaps Jesus was showing them that being disciples may not always be about healing or saving lives or anything that grandiose. It may be simple but service to people. I imagine that this was much easier and palatable for the disciples to digest. It is for me anyway. With that in mind, I figure that anyone can do small kindness to someone else. We all know that. It is written that Jesus did have his disciples go out in pairs, as you remember, with only their clothes on their backs and perhaps a staff, to go out and heal and spread the word. But as we read and study the life of Jesus through the Gospels, we see that for Jesus, discipleship is much broader than simple healings. There's much more to his message than that. It is a way of life. With communion, the disciples and we take and eat and drink of the body of Christ so as to incorporate into every cell in our bodies Jesus Christ, so that we become the body of Christ. Becoming the body of Christ may mean, at its most basic part, a mindfulness of the other, laying down our lives for our neighbors, others, friends, etc. Meeting violence with compassion, mercy in the midst of terror, keeping our relationship with God front and center in our lives, sometimes with great difficulty. Jesus had love for all people, even the people who betrayed him and those who turned on him. Judas is a case in point. Jesus ate with Judas. He washed his feet, knowing full well that Judas was about to betray him. For us, we oftentimes give people the benefit of the doubt, even perhaps knowing full well that they might turn on us, or they might hurt us, or take advantage of us. But that is on them. I don't know about you, but I think that Jesus sometimes shows me the high road. More than once in my life. To be the person who has integrity, to do the right thing even though others may not deserve it. I don't always follow the higher road. That higher calling, this is tough stuff. You know, during the past few weeks, we've been following Jesus on his way to Jerusalem. We have witnessed through the writers of the Gospels the healings and the ultimate resurrection of Lazarus along his way, some on purpose, some by accident, maybe the right place at the right time. We have seen acts of mercy, kindness, generosity, and God's glory always, throughout all of them. But again, these are, at the most basic, simple acts of service. Acts that demonstrated Jesus' compassion for people. Acts that he wished for his companions to take note of and follow. Acts that he wishes us to follow, even though we may not understand at the time. We too must bring ourselves to the table of God's presence in these acts of Jesus. In our reading of Exodus that Lori just read, we are witness to God's instructions to the Israelites for the Passover. We become part of their story. We adapt it to our culture, to our way of life. It is very detailed and precise. Why? Well, I don't know. But my guess is that God wanted the Israelites to give careful thought and consideration to what God was asking them to do and what was doing for them, so that their and ultimately our faithfulness to God is not taken lightly. It's like the traveling rock band that goes to different venues throughout the country. And in their contract, hidden somewhere in the contract, they specify that they want a bowl of M&M peanuts in their dressing room with all the brown ones removed. Why? Is it just because they just feel like doing that? The answer is so that they know the person who is reading the contract reads it fully and in detail, so that they know what is expected of them. If they don't see a bowl of M&M peanuts, or if they don't see brown ones that are missing, they leave, because they assume that the person or people have not paid attention to this very important document. Perhaps this is what God is expecting from the Israelites. Perhaps this test, if it is a test, is to make sure that their faith and trust in God is to be taken seriously and mindfully. Because we know from Scriptures, old and new, that God does keep God's promises. So what does that mean for us? How are we to do that? Serious prayer and Bible study and reflection? Serious worship experiences? Serious servant projects and service? Well, maybe not too seriously. I mean, we should have fun too. While we take our relationship with God seriously, we make sure that we have fun because we know that God has a sense of humor. Serving does not have to be drudgery or out of a sense of painful duty. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes we need to have that duty to make us get out and do it, to keep us on the straight and narrow. I've heard stories of pastors who just don't feel it anymore. They come into the pulpit and they just say some words and they just don't feel a thing, but they go through the motions. And eventually, with time, the Spirit enters them again and they can, with conviction, preach again. But it was a sense of duty that they needed to do this for others. And after a while, they became energized once again. Sometimes getting what we find is not so bad after all when we do the things. Yes, with your heart is best, and many, many people give with a willing and loving heart and a sense of duty, but loving duty. Thus we wash each other's feet. Metaphorically, in most cases, other cases, you take care of aging people, aging parents, you bathe them, and literally you do that. And we serve others. Also, as the disciples had their feet washed, they were to go out and do likewise. It's a circle of love. Sometimes to feel fully the effect of Jesus' love for us, we need to love others, to pass on the gift. Or even better, we may become the gift, as I said before. Jesus' words and actions, being made flesh for us, has established a pattern of being. God fully present and witnessing God's love and presence in a world that's needy and hurting. This is the gift. It is God who continues to wash our feet and our hearts daily. It is God who remembers us and gives us this precious gift of love.